Black, brown, and HBCU bound. Your source for news you can use. Let's shine a light on the 207 HBCUs where culture meets excellence.
Good evening, everyone. It is Yvonne Daniels here again for the Black, Brown, and HBCU Bound podcast. Today, we want to talk about college costs, exposing them, the hidden fees many people overlook when they look at the cost of attendance, which includes usually just the basic tuition, room and board, and yes, maybe people understand that they may have to lace out a dorm room. But there's so many other costs that you need to consider when you're understanding that you're getting ready to help your young one go out into the world of academia. So I would like to dedicate or focus on that in this episode. I did take some notes because I don't want to miss anything. So we're going to just jump right in and try to get all these things up and wrapped up in a nutshell so that you'll have a better idea, especially for those of you where this might be your first child going off to college. There's some things that you may or may not know and some things that you want to keep into consideration just for you, just so you'll know in the next couple of months, because you don't have a lot of months left. Very soon, your student will be off and running into their college year, with their first college year, which is always an exciting time, but it's also an expensive time. So we're going to look at some of the fees, and we'll start by talking about application and enrollment fees. I'm sure you guys are in the throes of applying to colleges now, so you're aware of the fact that these application fees can add up, and with the wonderful assistance of the Common Black application, I never can say that, the CBCA. Robert Mason has a wonderful application process where you can apply to multiple HBCUs for the very great price of $20. And then you have also the traditional Common App. Those places are a great place to apply for schools, especially when you can apply to a great number of schools for one application fee in many cases. But outside of that, we touched on something in the Facebook group today where we discussed trying to get around paying for application fees, if at all possible. And there's several ways to do that. If you're interested in hearing or seeing more about that, I just made a post in the Facebook group, Black, Brown, and HBCU Bound, in the Facebook a few minutes ago, talking about some ways to avoid paying the application fees if you at all can, if at all possible. So they're not always tied to finances. You don't always have to be financially strapped to be able to qualify or be eligible for your application fees to be waived. There are other ways to do that. And again, for more information, go on over to the Facebook group and join while you're at it, and also share. Always, I'm going to be encouraging you guys to join, share, and subscribe to both the group and to the podcast. The podcast is emerging, and we're always trying to boost our numbers so that YouTube knows or feels like we have some important information to share. So always, I'm going to sound like I'm being redundant, but I'm always going to be asking you guys to share and subscribe and comment, please. And also, if you have any questions about what we're talking about now or I'm talking about now, please put them in a post. I'm going to try to have the questions answered. So yeah, so with that, you can also think about housing and meal plans, because although the room and board is also a lot of times wrapped into the fee, but there are costs outside of the meal plan. The meal plans can be very limiting, and in some cases you'll find that the students won't use them. In some cases you find that the students may need more than the particular plan that you selected. So you have to understand that there will be additional costs related to being able to supplement those meal plans with maybe groceries. And you understand, I don't know if you know this, but you might be aware that your student will be trying to order Uber Eats and all those other things, and those just certainly add up. They're very costly. So that's something else that's going to have to be figured into what it is that you guys consider when you're considering the cost of this student living on campus, if that's what their direction is. Off-campus housing may seem cheaper, but it also comes with security deposits, other things other than having to have meals on their own, because they may not. I think you can still get the meal plan even though your student lives off campus, but aside from them living on campus, if they choose to, or you guys choose to have them live off campus, meals will be a lot more money. You have to consider the fact that they'll have to have groceries and other things I just mentioned in terms of food delivery services and things like that. So that's also a consideration of things that fall outside the range of, things that fall outside of the range of tuition, room, and board. Then you might have to consider that there might be tech fees associated with whatever program they signed on to. Could be mandatory laptops that you have to get aside from whatever one you have presently or whatever one you thought you were going to buy. And some of these, especially for some of the majors like engineering or some of those other majors, depending on the major, they may require that you buy a specific laptop or computer, and that is not included or factored in when you consider the cost of attendance. There are also online fees and lab fees that you might have to consider, and please take notes because these fees, or take notes always because you may find out something you didn't know, but investigate further when you're looking for applying in terms of what else may be needed for a particular major or particular students at a school where they're going, because these things have to be factored in because your student will need them to be successful as a student. Off-campus costs that parents tend to overlook: rent, security deposits, utilities, which could include water, electricity, commuting costs. Whether you live close or far, there will be some expenses getting to campus on a daily basis or getting off and on campus when you have to factor in the cost of traveling to campus when school starts. And then right after school starts, there are holidays that bring them back home, back and forth for Christmas, Thanksgiving, when the school is in break. And depending on where you live in the country, that could be costly. But there usually will be some fee associated with it. But again, depending on the distance between the school and where you guys actually live, could be a cost. So that's gonna be something that's gonna have to be incurred and should be considered. Other than, I'm gonna go back to the meal plan. When you do get the meal plan, whichever one you choose, it could be limited and it can be expansive. But this, just consider that the meal plans are above and beyond the cost of attendance, and they can be upwards of $3,000 to $5,000, and that's something that parents like to consider or should consider, because when you do get that bill, you're going to be looking with how many meals do they actually plan on eating at school or on campus, and whatever it is you come up with, I'm telling you, it's either too low or too high, because sometimes you'll even find that you buy a meal plan, which is mandatory in most places for the first year. But a lot of times you'll find that you'll get the meal plan and your student will still live off, eat off campus or have other needs where they want to not really take full advantage of the whichever plan it is that you selected. But you'll find that for some reason it's really a difficult fit when the student's just entering campus, not knowing exactly how it's going to work, what they're used to eating when they're at home, when they could just open the refrigerator whenever, to having a structured plan as to when they can eat and what is available to them to eat. Those are some kind of considerations. You might want to get a limited plate and also supplement that with some groceries. Those things that have to be considered. And then speaking of groceries, you also have to consider the microwaves and the refrigerator. Look, it doesn't stop. There will be fees outside of tuition, room, and board, and that's why we're doing this episode today. There's textbooks. The average textbook, as you probably know, it could be between $100 and $300. I've seen them up to $500 and $600. And you might want to consider, would you be buying new ones? Would you be renting? Would you use like an open share source or other things that are available? College has changed a lot since many of you have gone to college where you needed an actual physical textbook. A lot of the classes are online now, and classes online, there are some classes that are online now, but the books and the materials are online, where the students will need a code to access the books or the material. And it's just like buying a book. It's something you got to do. There will be a cost associated with that. And it's not cheap. But there are, if you investigate a little bit, there are some ways to lessen that cost, whether it be renting or whatever. So I would suggest and strongly advise and encourage you guys to do some research before you jump into that. The same thing when it comes to the refrigerator and the microwave, and don't buy them too quick or without looking, because most colleges have requirements as to what type, what size, what ampage, and all those things. A lot of there are organizations that will rent you one for the semester. So these are some things that you might want to start thinking about now, while we're still earlier in the latter part of the school year or the second half of the school year, but getting closer and closer to your student having to appear or show up for campus in August. Try to do as much as you can in terms of preparing now. May not even have to buy right now, but you do want to know what the costs will look like, or what your options are. Don't wait till the last minute, because you will have to make some decisions, and they will include your wallet. Those are the things that I can recommend. In terms of tech needs and printing needs, some schools charge for printing. These days, a lot of things are digital, so printing is at a minimum, but there are still colleges out there that will be charging for printed material or things that your student has to print or would like to print. Not all colleges offer free Wi-Fi service, so that might have to be considered. You can check with the college that your student is applying to. Some, like I said earlier in this episode, they require specific laptops or software or cloud subscriptions. These are things that you want to investigate. Don't wait until the last minute and then you're blindsided and realize that, oh boy, those fees are a little bit more than I thought they were. Just try to do your due diligence now while you can. In terms of sending your student across the country, we did touch on this in terms of transportation, but just to get your student to campus, if you live in California, let's say across the country, and your student's going to a school on the West Coast, on the East Coast, I should say, consider how much it's going to cost to get to your desired school. How many people will be going with that student? Will you be driving to campus? Will you be sending your student alone to campus? And there are costs associated with that as well. So keep that in mind. Also, a tip would be to see or research if there are not ride sharing services, but you will be getting Uber bills. If your credit card is tied to their credit card, you'll see the kids like to Uber. There are bikes, there are motorbikes and mini bikes or whatever. There's ride sharing, not ride sharing bikes, but the bikes that get you around town. Many cities have them, so that might be an option, but you do want to see if they have free options like shuttles and things like that. Just things to point out that there might be available. So try to keep those things in mind. Unexpected expenses could be health and wellness fees. There may be instances where your student gets sick. A lot of times the schools are going to make it mandatory for your student to sign on to their health insurance option or plan. Keep in mind that you always have the option to waive that fee. There are strict guidelines not guidelines, but there are strict dates as to how long in the semester you have before you're able to deny that health insurance and have it waived. And you will have to provide some type of verification that you have your own medical insurance, and they're going to want to know that the insurance that you have at home will extend to the city or the state where your student goes to school. So that's something to consider. I can tell you from the experience that I have had, I never got caught because I take really good notes and I have a calendar that's out of this world. But there are strict dates as to when you can have that insurance waived. They're very serious about that. If you wait longer than that period, it's usually a no-go in terms of you getting your money back. So I encourage students to get a calendar, write that date down, circle it in red. When you get to campus, ask when it is that you can deny or not refuse, but to have it waived and let them know that your student is coming to campus with their own medical insurance. Because you don't want to get stuck with those. Because even if you do get stuck with it, your student will have the insurance provided by the school and as a secondary, the one that is provided by you at home. But it's just a duplication of services and it serves nobody because it's not like they're going to get more medical care. So why should you pay for it if you don't have to? An emergency fund, if you can get that together, would be great because you may incur or your student may be in a position where they find themselves with unexpected car repairs if you're going to send them to school with a car, medical emergencies, losing ID cards, maybe these are big expenses by losing a dorm key or ID key or mailbox key if they still even have it now that we have more readily available services that students information digitally, but people still do send care packages. So I'm imagining they still will have some type of mail service for your student, which I think you have to pay for too. But sometimes the kids will lose their keys. There's a fee attached to that, and rightfully so, because if you don't put a fee on it, these kids would be very careless with their keys. So I get why the fees exist, but just keep in mind that somebody's gonna be responsible for paying for them. So get your money up, as the kids say. There's Greek life organizations and student organizations, and those come with fees. They come with joining fees. They come with not only joining fees and dues, but they have to have a certain type of clothing, events they have to attend or will be attending. So these are some more expenses if you want your student to have the full experience, and they more than likely would want to get involved with these activities. And they're healthy. This is their healthy thing to do. I know that there's some things going on in the news right now where that happened with a fraternity, but that is certainly outside of the norm, saying anybody would discourage their student. But if your student wants to get involved and get the full experience of campus, and that is something that they desire, I would encourage you, if you can, to help support that. And that will, again, take money. Everything takes money. So those are some of the things to consider. So some of the closing things I'd like you to take away from this episode is just that you're gonna have to come up with money. So don't just look at the cost of tuition, room, and board. Don't just look at the fact that your student might have gotten a great scholarship that covers a great portion of the tuition, room, and board. There will always be outside expenses that have to be covered. And the person that's got to cover them is you if you haven't gotten outside scholarships that allow you to spend the money on educational related activities. That's another thing in my other, well, when I wear my other hat, I tell people about scholarships and have a lot of information just from amassing it from wherever I go. But the scholarships, if you can at all get a scholarship, especially if you have some say in it, that stipulates that the student can use it for educational related expenses, opposed to being strictly dedicated to tuition, room, and board, you're better off with a scholarship that will allow you to use the money for educational related expenses. Because in that case, you can use it for not dorm fees, but you can use it for lab fees or travel expenses, laptops, clothes, and anything the student needs to get by on campus. To me, those are always the best scholarships to get. You don't always have a say in how the money should be spent, but there are some scholarship sponsors out there who are generous in how the student can use the money, and they just make sure that you know that they're for educational expenses and that you should be responsible with the money. So, not to elongate this podcast, I will end here, and hopefully I'll see you in those Facebook groups. As always, if you like the vibe, subscribe. If you know a friend who can use this information, they may not be in our group, encourage them. We have a healthy and vibrant Facebook group with the same name, the Black, Brown, and the Black. Always get caught up with this. The Black, Brown, and HBCU Bound Facebook group, which bears the same name as this podcast. So encourage others to join. It would be great for us. And always subscribe. We have a 30,000 member strong Facebook group. And I'm going to go in there. I'm going to be begging y'all. I'm going to be asking each and every one of you to subscribe and to tell a friend. We need to grow because I believe that this information is good for students who are trying to pave their way to college. And don't you guys agree? If you agree, leave that in the comments. If you want to subscribe, I'd encourage you to. And I'd be thankful for you too. Because like I said, we want to grow. With that, I'm going to bid you guys a good evening and hope to see you in those Facebook streets. Take care. Bye-bye.
Black, brown, and HBCU bound. Your source for news you can use. Let's shine a light on the 207 HBCUs where culture meets excellence.